When billionaire Cameron Lorne's silent son shocks him by melting into a stranger's arms, a weary waitress becomes the only one who can reach him, sparking a question that could change everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The rain pounded against the windows of Cameron Lorne's black Bentley as he drove through the unfamiliar Maryland countryside. His GPS had failed him 20 minutes ago, and now he was lost on some back road with his 5-year-old son strapped in the car seat behind him. "Hang in there, buddy," Cameron said, glancing in the rearview mirror. Eli didn't respond. He never did. His small face remained turned toward the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. His blue eyes, so much like his mother's, followed their paths with an intensity that broke Cameron's heart. Cameron tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He'd fired 3 nannies in the past month. Not one of them could connect with Eli, and the latest one had quit in tears after Eli had another meltdown when she tried to help him bathe. "We'll find somewhere to eat and figure this out," Cameron promised, more to himself than to his son. The bright neon sign of Lane's Diner appeared through the curtain of rain like a beacon. Cameron pulled into the nearly empty parking lot and sighed with relief. "Let's get some food, Eli." Getting his son out of the car was always a delicate operation. Eli hated being touched unexpectedly. Cameron moved slowly, telegraphing each movement before he made it. "I'm going to unbuckle you now, okay?" Eli's body tensed, but he didn't resist as Cameron carefully lifted him. The boy weighed almost nothing in his arms. Another worry that kept Cameron up at night. The bell above the diner door jingled as they entered. The warmth and smell of fresh coffee was a welcome relief from the cold rain. Only 3 other tables were occupied, an elderly couple sharing pie, a truck driver hunched over a newspaper, and a young man tapping away on a laptop. "Sit anywhere you like, honey. I'll be right with you." The voice came from behind the counter where a woman had her back turned, refilling the coffee maker. Cameron chose a booth by the window and carefully settled Eli on the vinyl seat. He pulled out an iPad from his bag and placed it in front of his son, who immediately began tapping at his favorite game app. When Cameron looked up, he found himself locking eyes with the waitress who had now turned to face them. She wasn't what he expected. Her dark skin glowed under the diner lights, and her hair was pulled back in dozens of neat braids gathered into a high ponytail. She wasn't wearing a speck of makeup, but she didn't need it. Her eyes were large and expressive, her lips full, her cheekbones high. But it wasn't her beauty that caught him off guard. It was the fact that she wasn't looking at him the way women usually did. There was no flash of recognition, no subtle shift in posture or sudden smile. She just looked tired, and somehow that was refreshing. "What can I get for you?" she asked, approaching their table with a notepad. Her name tag read Zariah. Coffee black. And Cameron glanced at the menu quickly. "Do you have anything plain?" "For my son." For the first time, Zariah's eyes softened as she looked at Eli, who hadn't looked up from his game. "We could do plain pancakes. No syrup, just butter on the side," she suggested. Cameron nodded, surprised. "That's perfect. How did you know?" Zariah shrugged. "My nieces are picky eaters too." She scribbled on her pad. "Anything else?" "I'll have whatever's fastest." "I don't care. Bacon and eggs it is," she said, and walked away without another word. Cameron watched her go, puzzled by the interaction. Most people either fawned over him or were intimidated. His face had been splashed across enough business magazines that he rarely enjoyed anonymity anymore. But this waitress treated him like any other customer. His phone buzzed. The executive board. Again, they'd been hounding him about the new security contract, but he'd left New York without telling anyone except his assistant. He needed this weekend with Eli. The doctors were suggesting new treatments, more specialists, and Cameron couldn't focus on anything else. "I need to take this," he muttered, though Eli wasn't listening. "Stay right here, buddy. Don't move." Cameron stepped outside under the diner's awning, rain still pouring around him. "Lorne," he answered curtly. Inside the diner, Eli continued tapping at his game until the colorful fish disappeared from the screen. He frowned and hit the tablet with his small palm. When that didn't work, he looked around for his father. Not seeing him, the boy's breathing quickened. The toy. He needed his toy. Eli spotted his backpack on the floor by his father's seat across the booth. He tried to reach for it, stretching his arms as far as they would go. His little fingers grasped at air. He scooted closer to the edge of the vinyl seat. Too close. Eli tumbled forward, his frail body hitting the linoleum floor with a thud. The shock of pain and fear paralyzed him for a moment before he opened his mouth in a silent scream, tears immediately flooding his eyes. Zariah was at the counter when she saw the little boy fall. She moved before she even registered what was happening, crossing the diner in quick strides. She knelt beside the child, who was now shaking, his face contorted in silent agony. "Hey, sweet boy," she said softly. "You took a tumble, didn't you?" Eli's eyes, wide with panic, finally focused on her face. Zariah knew enough about children not to grab him. Instead, she held out her hands, palms up. "Can I help you up?" The boy stared at her hands, his breathing ragged. "It's okay. I'm Zariah. I'll make pancakes." She smiled gently. "Do you want a backpack? Is that what you were trying to get?" Eli's eyes flicked toward the backpack, then back to her. "I'll get it for you, but first, let's get you off this cold floor. Can I pick you up?" To her surprise, the boy gave the smallest of nods. Very carefully, Zariah slid her hands under his arms and lifted him. He was frighteningly light, like lifting a bird. She expected him to stiffen or pull away, but instead he seemed to melt against her, his small head finding the crook of her neck. "There we go," she murmured, rubbing gentle circles on his back. "You're okay. I've got you." She felt him trembling against her chest, but he wasn't crying anymore. She reached for the backpack with one hand while supporting him with the other and sat down in the booth. "Let's see what's in here, shall we?" she said, unzipping the bag. She pulled out a worn, stuffed elephant. "Is this what you wanted?" Eli reached for the elephant and clutched it to his chest. His body relaxed even further against her. "That's a fine elephant," Zariah said, continuing to rub his back. "Does he have a name?" Eli didn't answer, but he snuggled closer into her embrace, his breath warm against her neck. Something tugged at Zariah's heart, a feeling she tried to bury after a last heartbreak. She pushed it away. The diner door opened, the bell jingling as Cameron Lawrence stepped back inside, still looking at his phone. When he finally looked up, he froze. His son, his touch-averse, silent son who screamed if anyone but Cameron held him, was cradled in the arms of the waitress, his head resting on her shoulder, his favorite elephant clutched to his chest. Cameron couldn't move, couldn't speak. It had been 3 years since he'd seen Eli voluntarily touch another person. 3 years since his wife had walked out, unable to cope with their son's diagnosis and Cameron's obsessive work schedule. 3 years of Eli retreating further into himself, rejecting everyone who tried to care for him. Yet here he was, peaceful in a stranger's arms. Zariah looked up and met Cameron's stunned gaze. "He fell trying to reach his backpack," she explained. "He's okay, though. No bumps or bruises that I can see." Cameron approached slowly, afraid any sudden movement might break the spell. "He's letting you hold him," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Kids usually like me," Zariah replied simply, "though he seems like a special little guy." "He is." Cameron swallowed hard. "He has Becker muscular dystrophy, a rare form that's progressing faster than normal. He stopped speaking 2 years ago." Zariah's arms tightened slightly around Eli, but her expression remained calm. "I'm sorry to hear that. No one can touch him," Cameron continued, still disbelieving the scene before him. "He doesn't let anyone." "He just needed his elephant," Zariah said, nodding toward the stuffed toy. "I think he was scared when he fell." Cameron sat down across from them, watching his son's face. Eli's eyes were drooping, exhaustion washing over him after the adrenaline of his fall. "I can take him," Cameron offered, reaching out. Eli's body immediately tensed, his small hands gripping Zariah's uniform. "It's okay," Zariah said to both of them. "He can stay here until your food comes." "I don't mind." "Thank you," Cameron said, dropping his hands. He couldn't tear his eyes away from Eli, who was relaxing again in Zariah's embrace. "I'm Cameron Lorne, by the way." "Zariah Lane," she replied. "My grandparents own this place." "Lane's Diner," Cameron nodded. "Makes sense." Your food should be up soon. Jerry's cooking today, and he's faster than my grandma, but not as good. She smiled, and Cameron felt something stir inside him, something he'd thought had died along with his marriage. Where are you headed? Zariah asked. We don't get many Bentleys around here. We were supposed to be going to a specialist in Baltimore, but the appointment was canceled at the last minute. I decided to take Eli for a drive anyway. He likes being in the car. Cameron ran a hand through his dark hair. I should have checked the weather. Maryland storms come on fast this time of year, Zariah said. She was still rubbing small circles on Eli's back, and the boy's eyes had fully closed now. The cook called from the kitchen. Order up, Z. That's yours, Zariah said. I should. Don't move, Cameron said quickly, then caught himself. Please. He's sleeping. I can get it. That's not how diners work, Zariah said with a small laugh. Please, Cameron repeated. This is the first time he's relaxed around someone new in, I can't even remember how long. Something in his tone must have convinced her because Zariah nodded. Plates are behind the counter, and there's a fresh pot of coffee. Cameron moved to the counter and found their food. He poured himself coffee and carefully carried everything back to the booth. As he set the plates down, he noticed Zariah gently swaying, almost imperceptibly, as she held his son. You're good with him, Cameron observed. I raised my twin nieces from when they were babies, she said. They're 7 now. After my sister passed, they came to live with me. I'm sorry about your sister. It was 5 years ago. Zariah's voice held, that tone of practiced neutrality that Cameron recognized from his own responses when people asked about his wife. They fell into silence as Cameron ate. Eli slept on, his small chest rising and falling against Zariah's. I should wake him, Cameron finally said. Get him to eat something. Let him rest, Zariah suggested. I can box up the pancakes for later. Cameron nodded, grateful. He watched as Zariah adjusted her position slightly, making sure Eli was comfortable. The tenderness in her movements made his chest ache. Do you? Cameron started, then stopped. The question forming in his mind was absurd. Impossible. He'd only just met this woman. But his son was sleeping in her arms. His son, who screamed if the nannies so much as touched his bedsheets while he was in the room. His son, who hadn't known a mother's touch since Alexandra had walked out, declaring she wasn't built for this kind of life before flying to Paris with her yoga instructor. Do I what? Zariah prompted. Cameron met her eyes. There was something in them, a steadiness, a kindness that wasn't performative or pitying. Would you be his mother? The words hung between them, shocking them both. Cameron hadn't meant to say it. Not like that, so blunt and desperate. But there it was. Zariah's eyes widened. Excuse me? I'm sorry, Cameron said quickly. That came out wrong. I meant, but what had he meant? He didn't even know himself. Mr. Lorne, Zariah said carefully, I think you're just grateful that Eli is comfortable with me. But you don't know me, and I'm not looking to be anyone's mother except to my nieces. Cameron nodded, embarrassment washing over him. Of course. I apologize. It was inappropriate. It's okay, Zariah said, her voice softening. I understand what it's like to be desperate for help with a child you love. Before Cameron could respond, the diner door opened again, and a young woman with braids similar to Zariah's burst in, shaking rain from her umbrella. Z, the school called. The twins got into another fight, and they need someone to pick them up. The woman noticed Zariah holding Eli and stopped. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize. It's okay, Kendra, Zariah said. She looked at Cameron apologetically. My nieces. They're going through a phase. Go, Cameron said immediately. We've taken up enough of your time. Zariah hesitated, looking down at Eli. Let me try to transfer him to you without waking him. With practiced ease, she shifted Eli's weight, cradling his head as she gently passed him to his father. Eli stirred but didn't wake, his small body curling against Cameron's chest. Thank you, Cameron said, his voice thick with emotion. Zariah nodded and slid out of the booth. The pancakes are on me. Just leave whatever you think is fair for the rest. She turned to her friend Kendra. Let me grab my purse. As Zariah walked away, Cameron felt a pang of loss that shocked him with its intensity. He watched her disappear into the back of the diner. Eli's warmth against his chest, the only proof that the last half hour hadn't been a dream. When Zariah emerged again, car keys in hand, she paused at their table. "Take care of that sweet boy," she said softly. "Wait," Cameron said. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a business card. "If you ever—" "I mean," Eli clearly responds to you. "If you consider, I don't know, helping sometimes, I could pay you." "Well, very well." Zariah looked at the card but didn't take it. "Mr. Lorne, I work 2 jobs already. I barely have time for my own family." "Please," Cameron said, and he never said please. Not to his board, not to his clients, not to anyone. "Just take it, in case you change your mind." Something in his voice must have reached her, because Zariah took the card and slipped it into her pocket. "Goodbye, Mr. Lorne. Safe travels." With that, she was gone, the bell above the door jingling as she rushed out into the rain with Kendra. Cameron looked down at his sleeping son. "What just happened, buddy?" he whispered. "And what do we do now?" As if in answer, Eli's small hand clutched his father's shirt, holding on tight. Outside in the parking lot, Zariah sat in her old Honda, the business car in her hand. Cameron Lorne, CEO, Lorne Security Systems. A New York phone number embossed in silver. Would you be his mother? The question echoed in her mind. Absurd. Impossible. She had 2 little girls depending on her. Mountains of medical bills from her own miscarriage last year. An ex who'd promised the world and left her with nothing but heartbreak. She didn't need a rich man's problems on top of her own. Zariah tucked the card into her wallet, behind her niece's school photos. Just in case. Then she started the car and drove toward the elementary school, pushing thoughts of the sad-eyed billionaire and his silent son out of her mind. But as the wipers beat against the rain, she couldn't forget the feeling of that small body trusting her completely, or the look in Cameron Lorne's eyes when he'd asked his impossible question. Would you be his mother? No. The answer was no. But somehow, Zariah knew this wasn't the end of their story. "Tiffany, Tamara, no jumping on the couch," Zariah called out as she scrambled eggs for breakfast. The twins, identical except for Tamara's small birthmark below her right ear, ignored her and continued bouncing. 5 more minutes, Tiffany pleaded. "Yeah, 5 more, echoed Tamara. Zariah checked the clock on the microwave. They were already running late, and she had to open the diner at 9. "No more minutes. Sit down and eat your breakfast, or we'll be late again." 2 weeks had passed since her encounter with Cameron Lorne and his son. She'd almost forgotten about it amid the constant juggling of her 2 jobs and raising her nieces. Almost. But there were quiet moments when she was driving home after a late shift or lying in bed staring at the ceiling, where she thought about that little boy and the way he'd curled against her. The image of his father's desperate eyes haunted her too. "Annie Z, Ms. Peterson says I need new shoes for gym class," Tamara said, finally sitting at the table. Zariah sighed. Another expense she hadn't budgeted for. "We'll look at the discount store this weekend." "But Kayla got the light-up ones from the mall," Tiffany chimed in. "We can't afford mall shoes right now, sweetie." Zariah served the eggs and toast, trying to ignore the pang of guilt. She wanted to give the girls everything, but her waitress salary at the diner and weekend shifts at the nursing home barely covered the basics. As the twins ate, Zariah checked her phone and found 3 missed calls from a New York number. Her heart skipped a beat, but she dismissed it. Probably just another bill collector. After dropping the girls at school, Zariah arrived at the diner to find her grandmother already there, arms deep in bread dough. "You're late," Pearl Lane said without looking up. "The twins were impossible this morning," Zariah explained, tying her apron. "And the Honda made that noise again." Pearl nodded, her lined face softening. At 72, she still worked nearly every day, despite her arthritis. "We need to get that car looked at. Can't have you broken down somewhere with the girls." "We need a lot of things, Grandma," Zariah said, trying to keep the weariness from her voice. "But right now, we need customers. I'll start the coffee." The morning passed in a blur of orders and coffee refills. Around noon, the bell above the door jingled, and Zariah looked up to see her friend Kendra. "Don't you have a shift at the hospital?" Zariah asked as Kendra slid onto a stool at the counter. "Switched with Darlene," Kendra said, an odd expression on her face. "Z, you need to check your phone." "Why? What's wrong? Are the girls okay?" "The girls are fine. But there's been a man calling the school office asking for your contact information. Said he met you here at the diner. Zariah's stomach dropped. Tall guy? Expensive suit? With a little boy? Kendra nodded. They wouldn't give him your number, of course. But he left his. Said it was urgent. It's not urgent, Zariah said, wiping the counter with more force than necessary. It's ridiculous. What's ridiculous? Pearl asked, emerging from the kitchen. Nothing, Grandma. Don't nothing me, girl. I've known you since you were in diapers. Zariah sighed. A customer from a couple weeks ago. Rich guy with a sick kid. He asked me to be his son's mother. Pearl's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me. Not like that, Zariah clarified. His son has some kind of muscle disease. Doesn't talk. Doesn't let people touch him. Except he let me hold him when he fell here at the diner. And this man wants you to what? Marry him? Pearl asked. No, at least I don't think so. He wanted to hire me to care for his son. For how much? Kendra asked. I didn't ask, Zariah said. It doesn't matter. I have the twins. I have 2 jobs already. I can't drop everything because some billionaire snapped his fingers. Billionaire, Pearl and Kendra said in unison. Zariah pulled out the business card she'd kept in her wallet. Cameron Lorne. He owns some big security company in New York. Kendra grabbed her phone and started typing. Lorne Security Systems. Oh my God, Z. This guy's legit. Forbes list. Self-made. Guido? No, divorced. She looked up. His company pioneered some kind of AI security system that half the Fortune 500 uses. I don't care if he invented sliced bread, Zariah said. I'm not uprooting my life. Pearl took the card from Zariah's hand, studying it. Maybe you should at least call him back. Hear what he has to say. Grandma, what? You're working yourself to the bone, trying to keep those girls in clothes that fit. The car's falling apart. And the notice from the landlord came yesterday. What notice? Zariah asked, her heart sinking. Pearl hesitated. I was going to tell you tonight. They're raising the rent. Another $100 a month. Zariah closed her eyes. She was already picking up extra shifts at the nursing home. There weren't enough hours in the day to work more. Just call him, Pearl said gently. You don't have to say yes, but don't be too proud to listen. The bell above the door jingled again, and Zariah forced a smile for the entering customers. We'll talk about this later, she told her grandmother. But later that night, after the twins were in bed, Zariah found herself sitting on her small balcony with her phone in hand. The New York number glowed on the screen. What would she even say? Sorry, I ignored your calls, but I'm ready to discuss becoming your child's mother now. It was absurd, but the rent increase loomed like a shadow, and the twins needed so much. New shoes, dental checkups, the asthma medication that insurance only partially covered. Before she could talk herself out of it, Zariah hit the call button. It rang twice before a deep voice answered. Lorne. Zariah nearly hung up. Instead, she took a deep breath. Mr. Lorne? This is Zariah Lane. From a diner. The silence on the other end lasted so long she thought the call had dropped. Ms. Lane, he finally said, his voice softening. Thank you for calling back. I heard you've been trying to reach me. Yes, Eli's been asking for you. In his way, Zariah frowned. I thought you said he doesn't speak. He doesn't, but he's been drawing pictures. Of you, I think. And the elephant. He keeps looking at the diner's business card I took. Something tugged at Zariah's heart. Mr. Lorne. Cameron, please. Cameron, I'm flattered that your son remembers me, but I don't understand what you want from me. She heard him take a deep breath. I want to hire you as Eli's caregiver. I'm not a nurse, Zariah said. I dropped out of nursing school when my sister died. You're better than any nurse we've had, Cameron replied. You're the only person he's responded to since his mother left. Zariah closed her eyes. I have my nieces. I have responsibilities here. Bring them, Cameron said quickly. I have a house outside the city. Plenty of room. Good schools nearby. I'll pay for their education. And yours, if you want to finish nursing school. Zariah's eyes flew open. You don't even know me. I know enough, Cameron said. I've spent the last 2 weeks having you thoroughly vetted. Your work history, your credit report, the circumstances of your sister's death, and your guardianship of the twins. Anger flared in Zariah's chest. You investigated me? Without my permission. I'm sorry, Cameron said, not sounding sorry at all. But I needed to know who you are before I could trust you with my son. And now you think you know me, because you've seen my pathetic credit score and know my sister overdosed. Zariah's voice shook. No, Cameron said quietly. I know you're someone who stepped up when others walked away. I know you work 2 jobs to support children that aren't biologically yours. I know you're drowning in medical debt from a miscarriage last year that your insurance didn't fully cover. Zariah felt like she'd been slapped. The miscarriage was something she rarely discussed, even with Kendra. The aftermath of Derek walking out when she told him she was pregnant, then losing the baby anyway, had nearly broken her. That's private, she whispered. I apologize, Cameron said, and this time he sounded sincere. I needed to be thorough. Eli's condition makes him vulnerable. Zariah wiped away the tear that had escaped down her cheek. What exactly are you offering? A full-time position as Eli's caregiver. Room and board for you and your nieces. Healthcare. A generous salary. And if it works out, help with your education. And what would I have to do? Be there for him, Cameron said simply. Do what you did at the diner. Help him feel safe. The doctors, the therapies, I can arrange all that. But he needs someone he trusts. Someone who sees him, not just his condition. Zariah looked through the sliding glass door at the small apartment she shared with the twins. The second-hand furniture. The leaky faucet she couldn't afford to fix. The pile of bills on the kitchen counter. I need to think about it, she said. Of course. But please don't take too long. Eli, he's getting worse. The muscle deterioration is accelerating. Zariah's heart clenched. How long does he have? Cameron's breath caught audibly. The doctors aren't certain. Years, not decades. But it's the quality of those years that matters most to me now. I'll call you tomorrow, Zariah promised. After hanging up, she sat on the balcony for a long time, watching the stars emerge above the streetlights. She thought about her own mother, who had died when Zariah was only 12, leaving her and her sister in their grandparents' care. She thought about her sister Zora, who had spiraled into addiction after the twins' father abandoned them, leaving Zariah to pick up the pieces. She thought about little Eli Lorne, who couldn't speak his fears but had somehow decided to trust her. The next morning, after a sleepless night, Zariah sat the twins down at breakfast. Girls, I need to talk to you about something important. Tiffany and Tamara looked up from their cereal, identical brown eyes serious. I've been offered a new job, Zariah began. It would mean moving away from here, to a big house in New York. Like in the movies? Tamara asked, eyes widening. Sort of. I will be taking care of a little boy who's sick. His dad is. Zariah hesitated. His dad has a lot of money, and he needs our help. Would we have our own rooms? Tiffany asked, practical as always. Yes, and you'd go to a new school. A really good one. The twins exchanged a look, having one of their silent conversations. Is the little boy nice? Tamara finally asked. Zariah smiled. Yes, he's very sweet. He's a bit younger than you, and he can't talk. But I think you might like him. Can we still see Grandma and Grandpa? Tiffany asked. Of course. They can visit, and we'll come back to visit too. Another silent exchange between the twins. Okay, they said in unison. Zariah blinked, surprised by their easy acceptance. Really? You're okay with moving? Tamara shrugged. Kayla's been mean to me anyway, and our apartment is small. And you always look tired, Tiffany added, with the brutal honesty of a 7-year-old. Maybe you won't be so tired at the new house. Tears pricked at Zariah's eyes. Maybe not. Later that day, after discussing it with her grandparents, who gave their cautious blessing, Zariah called Cameron back. I have conditions, she said as soon as he answered. Name them, Cameron replied without hesitation. The twins come with me. They need stability, their own space, and I need time off to be with them. Done. I want a contract, something that protects me if this doesn't work out. My lawyers will draw it up immediately. And I'm not moving to New York City. I've seen the movies. It's too much. Cameron chuckled, a warm sound that surprised her. My main residence is in Connecticut, about an hour outside the city. It's quiet, lots of trees. One more thing, Zariah said, her voice firm. I'm not Eli's mother. I won't ever be his mother. I'm his caregiver. That needs to be clear. There was a pause. Understood, Cameron finally said. When can you start? I need 2 weeks. To give notice. Pack. Say goodbye. I'll send movers. And a car to bring you up. Zariah swallowed hard. Okay then. Okay, Cameron echoed. Zariah, thank you. The sincerity in his voice made her chest tighten. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Lorne. You don't know what you're getting into with the twins. Cameron, he corrected. And after raising Eli, I think I can handle anything. Zariah wasn't so sure, but she kept that thought to herself. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Zariah gave notice at both jobs, packed up the small apartment, and tried to prepare the twins for their new life. Her grandparents helped, though Pearl couldn't hide her worry. You're going to be living in a stranger's house, she fretted. What if he's not what he seems? Grandma, the man's been thoroughly investigated by every business magazine in the country. Zariah reassured her. Besides, I'm not going there for him. I'm going for Eli. Pearl hummed skeptically. Just be careful with your heart, girl. Rich men are used to getting what they want. My heart isn't part of the deal, Zariah said firmly. The day of departure arrived with a sleek black SUV pulling up in front of their apartment building. The driver, a woman in a neat suit, helped load their few boxes. Mr. Lorne sent this for the young ladies, she said, handing Zariah 2 small gift bags. Inside each was a brand new tablet with a note for the car ride. Looking forward to meeting you both. Cameron, Annie Z, look. Tamara squealed. It's better than Jenny's. Zariah frowned. She hadn't expected gifts. It made the arrangement feel more personal than she'd intended. The drive to Connecticut took nearly 4 hours with traffic. The twins were glued to their new tablets, leaving Zariah to her thoughts as she watched the landscape change from urban sprawl to green hills and elegant homes. When the SUV turned onto a private road lined with old trees, Zariah's stomach fluttered with nerves. They passed through an imposing gate and rounded a curve to reveal a large stone house set among manicured gardens. It wasn't the massive mansion Zariah had feared. Instead, it was a gracious home that looked like it had stood for generations, with a wide front porch and ivy climbing one wall. The SUV stopped at the front steps, where Cameron Lorne stood waiting, his tall figure even more imposing than Zariah remembered. But her eyes were drawn to the small boy holding his hand. Eli looked up as Zariah stepped out of the car. For a moment, he didn't react. Then his free hand lifted in a small wave. Zariah smiled and waved back. Hello, Eli. Do you remember me? The boy nodded solemnly. He was thinner than she remembered, his blue eyes enormous in his pale face. The twins tumbled out of the car behind her, suddenly shy in the presence of strangers. Girls, this is Mr. Lorne and his son Eli, Zariah said. Mr. Lorne, these are my nieces, Tiffany and Tamara. Thank you for the tablets, Tiffany said politely. Yeah, thanks, Tamara echoed. Cameron smiled, and the expression transformed his serious face. You're very welcome. Eli picked them out specially. He thought you might like the purple cases. The twins looked at Eli with new interest. Purple's our favorite color, Tiffany told him. Eli's lips curved in a small smile. Let's get you settled, Cameron said, gesturing toward the house. Mrs. Abernathy has prepared rooms for all of you. As they climbed the steps, Eli suddenly let go of his father's hand and moved to Zariah's side. After a moment's hesitation, he slipped his small hand into hers. Cameron watched, his expression a mixture of pain and hope. He's been waiting for you, he said quietly. Zariah squeezed Eli's hand gently. I'm here now, she told the boy. And so are Tiffany and Tamara. We're going to be friends. Okay. Eli nodded, tugging her toward the door. The inside of the house was as elegant as the exterior, with polished wood floors and tasteful furniture. But it didn't feel like a museum. There were books on a coffee table, a jacket thrown over a chair, and what looked like Eli's drawings framed on the walls. Mrs. Abernathy manages the house, Cameron explained as an older woman with silver hair appeared from what must be the kitchen. She'll show you to your rooms. This way, dears, Mrs. Abernathy said with a kind smile. I've put the young ladies next to each other with a connecting door. And Ms. Lane, you're across the hall from Eli's room, as Mr. Lorne requested. As they followed Mrs. Abernathy up the curved staircase, Eli kept hold of Zariah's hand. When they reached the second floor, he tugged her toward a door decorated with a colorful nameplate. "Is this your room?" Zariah asked. Eli nodded and pushed the door open. Inside was a child's paradise. Bookshelves filled with books, a train set on a low table, and a wall-mounted TV screen. But the thing that caught Zariah's attention was a drawing taped above his bed. It was a childish sketch of a woman with dark braids holding what appeared to be an elephant. Above it, in an adult's careful writing, was Zariah and Ellie, the name of his stuffed elephant. "You drew this?" Zariah asked softly. Eli nodded, watching her face carefully. "It's beautiful," she told him. "Thank you for remembering me." The boy's smile was like a ray of sunshine breaking through clouds. Later that evening, after the twins were settled in their rooms, which they declared like a hotel but better, Zariah found Cameron in his study. "The girls okay?" he asked, looking up from his laptop. "They're fine, overwhelmed but excited." Zariah sat in the chair across from his desk. "I think we should discuss expectations. My duties, boundaries." Cameron closed his laptop. "Of course. First, I want you to know that you and the girls are free to use the house and grounds as you wish. The pool is heated. There's a media room downstairs. The kitchen is always stocked. Mrs. Abernathy will ask for your preferences." "That's generous, but I was talking more about my job description." Cameron nodded. "Eli has physical therapy 3 times a week. A speech therapist comes on Tuesdays. Dr. Mara, his neurologist, will want to meet you next week. Otherwise, he needs what any child needs: consistency, patience, care." "And where will you be?" Zariah asked. "I work from home 3 days a week now. The other 2, I'm in the city. I've cut back on travel significantly since Eli's diagnosis." "That's good. He needs his father." Cameron's expression tightened. "I'm trying. It doesn't come naturally to me." "Parenting doesn't come naturally to anyone," Zariah said. "We all learn as we go. Some better than others," Cameron replied, a shadow crossing his face. Eli's mother couldn't handle it. His diagnosis, the prognosis, any of it. "That's her loss," Zariah said firmly. Cameron studied her face. "You really believe that, don't you?" "Edo, that little boy is a gift. Anyone who can't see that isn't worthy of him." Something shifted in Cameron's eyes, a warming, a softening. "I'm glad you're here, Zariah Lane." The way he said her name made her stomach flutter again. She pushed the feeling aside. "I'm here for Eli," she reminded him. "I know." Cameron smiled slightly. "That's exactly why I wanted you." As Zariah left the study, she tried to ignore the double meaning of his words. This was a job, an opportunity for the twins. Nothing more. But later that night, as she checked on Eli before bed, she found him sleeping peacefully, his stuffed elephant clutched to his chest and a smile on his face. And something inside her, something she'd locked away after Derek left, cracked open just a fraction. She was here for Eli. That was true. But as she closed his door and looked across the hall of the room that now belonged to her, Zariah wondered if she was also here for herself. For a second chance at the life she'd thought was forever out of reach. Just then, Cameron appeared at the end of the hall, his tall figure silhouetted against the staircase light. He raised a hand in silent greeting before disappearing into the master suite. Zariah shivered, though she wasn't cold. "Boundaries," she whispered to herself as she entered her room. "Remember the boundaries." But as she slipped between the softest sheets she'd ever felt, in a room larger than her entire apartment back in Maryland, Zariah knew that maintaining boundaries in this house, with this family, might be the biggest challenge of all. Autumn painted the Connecticut countryside in brilliant shades of red and gold as September gave way to October. Zariah had been at the Lorne estate for 6 weeks, and already it felt as if they'd created a new normal. Each morning, she helped Eli with his stretching exercises before breakfast. The routine was critical for maintaining what mobility he had. At first, he'd resisted, his small face pinched with pain. But Zariah had found that singing during the exercises distracted him, and soon it became their special time together. "That's it, buddy," she encouraged as Eli completed his final stretch. "You're getting stronger every day." The boy looked up at her with those soulful blue eyes that seemed to hold wisdom beyond his years. He reached for the tablet on his bedside table, his primary means of communication, and typed quickly. "Thank you," appeared on the screen. Zariah smiled. "You're welcome. Ready for breakfast? I think Mrs. Abernathy is making your favorite pancakes." Eli nodded eagerly and slid off the bed. His gait was unsteady, but he refused a wheelchair unless absolutely necessary. His determination reminded Zariah of the twins when they were younger, stubborn and resilient. Downstairs, they found the twins already at the kitchen table, chattering about their school day ahead. They'd adjusted to their new school with surprising ease, making friends and thriving in the smaller class sizes and additional resources that Cameron's money provided. "Morning, Eli," Tiffany called. "We're having pancakes." "I told him," Zariah said, helping Eli into his chair. Mrs. Abernathy placed a stack of pancakes in front of each child. "Mr. Lorne called. He'll be home for dinner tonight. The Tokyo deal is finally done." Zariah nodded, ignoring the small flutter in her stomach at the news. Cameron had been in Japan for nearly a week, the longest he'd been away since she'd arrived. She told herself she was only happy for Eli's sake. The boy missed his father terribly when he traveled. After breakfast, Zariah drove the twins to school before returning home for Eli's speech therapy session. Dr. Chen arrived promptly at 10, her bright smile putting Eli at ease immediately. "How's our boy doing today?" she asked Zariah as they settled in the sunroom that had been converted into a therapy space. "Good days and bad," Zariah replied quietly. "But more good lately. He's using the tablet more freely, and he tried to say juice yesterday." Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "Really? That's significant progress." "I recorded it," Zariah said, pulling out her phone. She played the video she'd captured, Eli pointing to his cup and making a sound that, while not perfectly clear, was unmistakably an attempt at speech. "Zariah, this is wonderful," Dr. Chen said, genuine excitement in her voice. "When I started with Eli, his medical file indicated he hadn't attempted vocalization in over 2 years. Pride warmed Zariah's chest. "He's trying so hard. It's not just his effort," Dr. Chun said meaningfully. "Children respond to stability and security. You've given him that." The therapy session went exceptionally well, with Eli focused and engaged. Afterward, as Dr. Chun packed up her materials, she hesitated. "Has Mr. Lawrence seen this progress?" Zariah shook her head. "He's been in Tokyo all week, but I've sent him videos." "And his response?" "He seems grateful." Dr. Chun gave her a knowing look. "Just grateful." Zariah busied herself with straightening Eli's therapy cards. "What else would he be?" "I've worked with the Lornes for 2 years, Dr. Chen said carefully. "I've never seen Cameron look at anyone the way he looks at you." He crept up Zariah's neck. "I'm Eli's caregiver. That's all." "If you say so." Dr. Chun smiled. "See you next week." After she left, Zariah tried to push the conversation from her mind. But as she helped Eli with his lunch, she found herself wondering what Cameron's return would be like. They'd spoken briefly each day he was gone, ostensibly so he could check on Eli, but their conversations often extended beyond updates on his son. Cameron had asked about the twins, about Zariah's day, about the book she mentioned reading. Small things, but they felt significant somehow. "Your dad's coming home tonight," she told Eli as she cut his sandwich into manageable pieces. "Are you excited?" Eli nodded vigorously, then typed on his tablet. "Are you?" The question caught Zariah off guard. "Of course," she said automatically. "He's been gone a long time." Eli studied her face with that unervingly perceptive gaze, then went back to his lunch. That afternoon, while Eli napped, Zariah checked her email on the laptop Cameron had provided for her. Among the usual messages was one from her grandmother with an alarming subject line. "Derek is back." Zariah's heart pounded as she opened it. "Z, I didn't want to call and worry you, but Derek showed up at the diner yesterday, asking about you and the girls. He looks different, cleaned up, wearing a suit. Said he's been sober for a year and working at his uncle's law firm. He wanted your new address, but I didn't give it to him. He left his card and said he'd be in touch. I thought you should know. Love, Grandma." Attached was a photo of a business card. Derek Williams, associate attorney, Williams and Hancock. Zariah stared at the screen, her hands shaking slightly. Derek, the man who'd promised to love her forever, who'd gotten her pregnant and then disappeared when things got tough. The man whose abandonment had contributed to her miscarriage from stress and heartbreak. And now he was back, asking about the twins, the girls he'd ignored since they were 2 years old, when their mother, Zariah's sister, had first gotten sick. No, Zariah whispered. No, no, no. She closed the laptop and paced the room, trying to calm herself. Derek had no rights to the twins. The court had granted her full guardianship after Zora's death. He couldn't just waltz back into their lives. Could he? The sound of Eli stirring through the baby monitor pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. She took a deep breath, one problem at a time. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur as Zariah focused on Eli's routine, then picked up the twins from school. By the time they returned home, the sky was darkening, and a familiar black sedan was parked in the circular driveway. "Mr. Lorne is home," Tamara exclaimed, racing up the front steps. Tiffany followed close behind, both girls bursting with stories to share about school. Despite herself, Zariah smiled. The twins had taken to Cameron immediately, seeing him as a fascinating adult who actually listened when they talked and remembered details about their lives. Eli, who had been quiet on the drive home, perked up at the sight of the car. He struggled to get out of his booster seat faster than his body would allow. "Easy, buddy," Zariah said, helping him. "Dad's not going anywhere." As soon as they entered the house, Eli broke away from her, moving as quickly as his unsteady legs would carry him toward the sound of Cameron's voice in the study. Zariah followed, the twins right behind her. They found Cameron crouched down, enveloping his son in a tight hug. "I missed you too, champ," he was saying, his voice rough with emotion. "Were you good for Zariah?" Eli nodded against his father's shoulder, then pulled back to type on the tablet he carried everywhere. "Zariah helped me talk." Cameron's eyes shot up to meet Zariah's. "What?" Zariah stepped forward, suddenly nervous. "He tried to say juice yesterday." Dr. Chun was very encouraged. Cameron looked back at his son, wonder spreading across his tired face. "Can you show me?" Eli bit his lip, concentrating hard. "Do," he managed to sound breathy but deliberate. That's amazing," Cameron said, his eyes shining. He looked up at Zariah again. "Thank you." The naked gratitude in his expression made Zariah's chest tighten. "It's all him," she said. "He's working so hard." "It's not all him," Cameron said, standing up. "It's you too." Their eyes held for a moment too long, until Tiffany broke the spell. "Mr. Lorne, did you bring us presents from Japan?" she asked, earning an elbow from her sister. "Tiffany, that's rude," Tamara hissed. Cameron laughed. "As a matter of fact, I did." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out 3 small packages wrapped in colorful paper. "One for each of you." The twins squealed with delight, while Eli waited patiently for his gift. Inside each package was a delicate origami animal. A crane for Tamara, a cat for Tiffany, and an elephant for Eli. "They're made from special paper that won't tear easily," Cameron explained. "A traditional craftsman in Kyoto makes them." "It's beautiful," Zariah said, admiring the intricate folds. "I have something for you too," Cameron said, reaching into his pocket. "But maybe later." The look he gave her sent warmth spreading through Zariah's body. "Dinner will be ready at 7, she managed to say. "You probably want to rest before then." "Actually, I'm not tired," Cameron said. "Slept on the plane. I thought maybe we could talk about Eli's progress." "Of course." "Can we watch TV?" Tiffany asked. 1 hour, Zariah agreed. "Then homework." As the children disappeared into the media room, Cameron led Zariah into his study, closing the door partway. "You look tired," he observed. "Thanks," she said dryly. "No, I mean," he ran a hand through his dark hair, musing the usually perfect style. I'm worried about you. You're doing so much with the kids." "It's my job." "Is it just a job?" Cameron asked quietly. Zariah swallowed. What else would it be? Instead of answering, Cameron reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small velvet box. "This is what I brought for you." Zariah's heart skipped. "Cameron, it's not what you think," he said quickly, opening the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm. It's a Japanese symbol for strength. The shopkeeper said it's given to people who care for others. Relief and something that felt strangely like disappointment washed over Zariah. It's beautiful. Thank you. May I? Cameron asked, taking the bracelet from a box. Zariah nodded, extending her wrist. His fingers were warm against her skin as he fastened the clasp. He didn't immediately let go. I missed you, he said, his voice low. Not just for Eli's sake. Zariah looked up, meeting his intense gaze. Cameron, we talked about boundaries. I know. He released her wrist, but didn't step back. And I've respected them. But these past 6 weeks, watching you with Eli, with the twins, it's changed things for me. What things? Zariah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. Everything, Cameron said simply. How I see my life. My future. Zariah shook her head. You're just grateful because I'm helping your son. It's more than gratitude, Zariah. You must know that. Before she could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and froze. A Maryland number she didn't recognize. I should take this, she said, stepping away from Cameron. It might be the twin school back home. Cameron nodded, disappointment flashing across his face. We'll talk later. Zariah slipped out of the study and answered the call. Hello. Zariah? It's Derek. Her blood ran cold. How did you get this number? Your grandma wouldn't give me your address, but she didn't hide your number well enough on the diner's contact sheet. His voice was just as she remembered, smooth, with that hint of a smile that had once charmed her. Don't hang up, please. I just want to talk. We have nothing to talk about. We have the girls to talk about. Zariah gripped the phone tighter. They're not yours to talk about. You've never been there for them. I want to change that, Derek said. I'm different now. Sober. Working. I want to be part of their lives. After 5 years of nothing, no child support, no birthday cards, not even a phone call. I was a mess after Zora died. You know that. The drugs, the drinking. I couldn't be what they needed then. But I am now. Zariah leaned against the wall, suddenly feeling dizzy. What do you want, Derek? To see them. To start being their uncle again. Maybe more, eventually. What does that mean? There was a pause. My lawyer thinks I have a case for partial custody. The room seemed to tilt. Custody? Are you insane? You have no rights to them. I'm their only living blood relative besides you, Derek said, his voice hardening. And I understand you've moved them to Connecticut to live with some rich guy. How do you think a judge will view that? How do you know where I am? Zariah demanded. Small towns, big gossip, Derek replied. Look, I don't want to fight you. I just want a chance. I'm coming to Connecticut next week. We can meet, talk things through like adults. If you come anywhere near the twins, I'll get a restraining order. That would be a mistake, Derek said quietly. I have resources now. My uncle's firm is backing me. Don't make this ugly, Z. The old nickname in his mouth made her feel sick. I have to go. Think about it, Derek said. I'll text you the details of where I'm staying. Ball's in your court. He hung up, leaving Zariah staring at her phone in horror. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her legs unable to support her. The idea of Derek taking the twins, even part-time, was unbearable. They barely remembered him. He was a stranger to them, a vague figure in old photographs. And after what he'd done to her, Zariah, she looked up to find Cameron standing over her, concern etched on his face. What happened? Who was on the phone? Derek, she whispered. The twins' uncle. My ex. He's threatening to seek custody. Cameron's expression darkened. On what grounds? He says he's changed, that he has resources now. Zariah laughed bitterly. He's working at his uncle's law firm. Cameron crouched beside her. He doesn't have a case. You're their legal guardian. But he's blood family, and he's implying that my moving them here to live with you, that it looks bad. It doesn't look bad, Cameron said firmly. The girls are thriving. They're in an excellent school. They have stability, security. A judge might see it differently, Zariah said, voicing her deepest fear. A single woman moving in with a wealthy single man she barely knows, bringing 2 young girls with her. Then we change how it looks, Cameron said. Zariah frowned. What do you mean? We make it clear that this is a permanent arrangement, that the girls have a stable home here. Cameron took her hand. Let me help, Zariah. My lawyers are the best in the country. I can't ask you to fight my battles. You're not asking. I'm offering. Cameron's grip tightened. Those girls are part of our family now. So are you. The word family hung between them, weighted with meaning. Zariah looked into Cameron's eyes and saw something that both thrilled and terrified her. This isn't what you signed up for, she said. Neither was falling for you, Cameron replied quietly. But here we are. Before Zariah could respond, the study door burst open and Eli appeared, his face anxious. What's wrong, buddy? Cameron asked, immediately shifting his attention to his son. Eli typed frantically on his tablet. Zariah sad? The boy's concern broke through Zariah's shock. She managed a smile. I'm okay, Eli. Just a little worried about something. Eli frowned, not believing her. He typed again, I help. You do help, Zariah assured him, reaching out to touch his cheek. Every day, just by being you. The boy leaned in her touch, then surprised both adults by crawling into Zariah's lap. He nestled against her chest, offering comfort in the only way he knew how. Cameron watched, his expression soft. See? Family. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Zariah sat on the terrace, wrapped in a cardigan against the autumn chill. The bracelet Cameron had given her caught the moonlight as she twisted it around her wrist. She heard the door open behind her, but didn't turn around. Can't sleep? Cameron asked, settling into the chair beside hers. Too much on my mind. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, looking out at the shadowy gardens. I meant what I said earlier, Cameron finally said. About helping with Derek. I know you did. And about the other thing. Zariah turned to look at him. What other thing? Cameron's smile was rueful. You know what thing? She didn't know. The thing neither of them had been willing to name over the past weeks. The electricity that sparked between them when their hands brushed passing the salt at dinner. The way they found excuses to be in the same room. The late-night conversations after the children were asleep that had nothing to do with Eli's care. I told you when I came here that I wasn't looking for that, Zariah said carefully. I know. Neither was I. Cameron leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've spent 3 years focused on only one thing. Giving Eli the best life possible with whatever time he has. I shut everything else out. Everyone else. And now I realize that the best life for Eli isn't just about doctors and therapies and accommodations. It's about joy, connection. Cameron looked at her directly. The things you've brought into our home. Zariah felt a lump form in her throat. Cameron, you don't have to say anything, he interrupted. I know the timing is terrible with Derek showing up. I know you have the girls to think about. I'm not asking for a response. I just wanted you to know where I stand. He stood, as if to leave, but Zariah caught his hand. Where exactly do you stand? She asked, needing to hear him say it. Cameron's fingers intertwined with hers. I'm falling in love with you, Zariah Lane. I think I started falling the moment I saw you holding my son in that diner. The words hung in the night air between them. Zariah's heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. I'm scared, she admitted. Not just of Derek. Of this. Of what happens if it doesn't work. I'm scared too, Cameron said, his voice rough with honesty. But I'm more scared of never knowing what could have been. He leaned down, his intention clear. Zariah knew she should pull away, maintain the boundaries she'd insisted upon. But as his lips met hers, gentle and questioning, she found herself responding, her free hand coming up to cup his face. The kiss deepened, years of loneliness and longing pouring into the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. That was, Cameron began. A mistake, Zariah suggested, reality crashing back. No, Cameron said firmly. That was inevitable. Before Zariah could respond, her phone lit up with a text. She glanced at it and saw Derek's name, followed by the details of his visit the following week. He's really coming, she said, the moment with Cameron shattering like glass. Cameron looked at the message, his jaw tightening. Let him come. We'll be ready. We. Yes, we. Cameron squeezed her hand. Whatever happens, Zariah, you're not alone anymore. Not with Derek, not with Eli's care, not with any of it. Zariah wanted to believe him. But as she looked down at Derek's message, fear coiled in her stomach. She'd lost so much already in her life. Her parents, her sister, her baby. The thought of losing the twins was unbearable. And now there was something new to lose, this fragile, unexpected thing growing between her and Cameron, the family they were somehow becoming against all odds. One day at a time, she said, more to herself than to Cameron. One day at a time, he agreed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Starting now, as they sat together under the stars, Zariah tried to focus on the warmth of Cameron's hand in hers rather than the cold dread of Derek's impending visit. For tonight, at least, she would allow herself this moment of peace. Tomorrow would bring its own battles. The day of Derek's arrival dawned cold and gray, matching Zariah's mood as she helped the twins get ready for school. She hadn't told them about their uncle's return. There would be time for that conversation if it became necessary, if Derek actually had a case. For now, she wanted to protect their happiness, their sense of security in this new life. Auntie Z, can we have a sleepover this weekend? Tamara asked as Zariah braided her hair. Jenny and Kayla want to come over. We'll see, Zariah said, tying off the braid with a purple elastic. I need to check with Mr. Lorne first. He'll say yes, Tiffany said confidently from the doorway, already dressed in her uniform. He always says yes to us. Zariah smiled despite her anxiety. It was true. Cameron had been generous to a fault with the twins, treating them like family from the beginning. They'd taken to calling him Mr. C and had him wrapped around their little fingers. Even so, it's his house, Zariah reminded them. We need to be respectful. After dropping the girls at school, Zariah returned to find Cameron in the kitchen, laptop open on the counter, a cup of coffee at his elbow. He'd canceled his meetings to be home when Derek arrived. Everything okay? He asked as she poured herself coffee. As okay as it can be, Zariah replied. She glanced at his screen. What's that? Background check on Derek Williams, Cameron said, turning the laptop so she could see. My security team has been thorough. Zariah scanned the document, her eyes widening. He really has been sober. Completed a rehab program last year. Yes, Cameron acknowledged. And he's been working at his uncle's firm for 10 months. No arrests, no financial issues. On paper, he's turned his life around. Zariah's heart sank. So he might have a case. Not necessarily. Cameron closed the laptop. My legal team has been reviewing your guardianship arrangement. It's rock solid. The courts gave you full custody for good reason. Derek was completely absent when the twins needed him most. But he's their blood relative, Zariah said, voicing her deepest fear. And he's a man with a good job now. What judge wouldn't think a male role model would be good for the girls? They have male role models, Cameron said firmly. Me, Mrs. Abernathy's husband. They're teachers. Zariah looked away. It's not the same. Cameron moved closer, taking her hands in his. Zariah, look at me. She did, reluctantly. We're going to get through this, he promised. Together, the warmth in his eyes made her want to believe him. Since their kiss on the terrace 3 nights ago, something had shifted between them. They hadn't discussed it. There hadn't been time with all the preparations for Derek's visit, but Zariah felt it in every look, every casual touch, every moment they were together. I'm scared, she admitted. Not just about losing the girls, about everything changing. We were just finding our balance here and now. Now we'll find a new balance, Cameron said. A better one. Zariah was about to respond when Mrs. Abernathy appeared in the doorway. Ms. Lane, there's a gentleman at the gate asking for you. A Mr. Williams. Zariah's stomach dropped. He's early. Cameron straightened, instantly shifting into the imposing CEO she'd glimpsed in occasional video conferences. Let him in, Mrs. Abernathy. We'll meet him in the study. Zariah took a deep breath, steeling herself. I can do this alone. You could, Cameron agreed. But you don't have to. 5 minutes later, they heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. Zariah moved to the window and saw a sleek silver car she didn't recognize pull up. A moment later, Derek stepped out. He looked different than she remembered. His wild curls now cut short, his lanky frame filled out in a tailored suit. But his smile was the same as he looked up at the house, that confident, slightly crooked smile that had once made her heart race. Now it just made her angry. "That's him?" Cameron asked, joining her at the window. Zariah nodded. "He looks ordinary," Cameron observed. "What were you expecting?" Cameron's lips quirked. "Horns and tail, maybe." Despite everything, Zariah laughed. The sound faded as the doorbell rang. "Ready?" Cameron asked. "No," Zariah admitted. "But let's do this anyway." They moved to the study, where Mrs. Abernathy showed Derek in. He looked momentarily taken aback at finding Cameron there, but recovered quickly, extending his hand. "Derek Williams. You must be Mr. Lorne." "Cameron Lorne," Cameron confirmed, shaking Derek's hand briefly. His posture was relaxed, but Zariah could sense the tension beneath the surface. Derek turned to her, his expression softening. "Zariah, you look great." "What do you want, Derek?" Zariah asked, skipping the pleasantries. Derek sighed, still direct as ever. "Can we sit?" They settled into the leather chairs arranged around the fireplace. Derek glanced around the study, taking in the expensive artwork, the rare books, the view of the manicured gardens. "Nice place," he said. "The girls must love it here." "They do," Zariah said. "It's their home now." Derek nodded slowly. "That's actually what I wanted to discuss. Their home. Their future." "Their future is here," Cameron said, his voice calm but firm. "With Zariah." Derek raised an eyebrow. "And with you, Mr. Lorne? What exactly is your relationship with my nieces and their aunt?" "That's none of your business," Zariah snapped. "It is if it affects Tiffany and Tamara," Derek countered. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to be part of their lives." "After 5 years of nothing?" Zariah's voice cracked with emotion. "After you abandoned them when Zora died? After you left me when I was pregnant with your child?" Derek had the grace to look ashamed. "I know I've made mistakes. Terrible ones. I was an addict, Zariah. I was sick, and the girls were children who just lost their mother," Zariah said. "They needed family. They needed stability. Where were you then?" "I couldn't give them what they needed then," Derek admitted. "But I can now. I'm sober. I have a good job. I've changed." "People don't change that much," Zariah said. "Some do," Cameron interjected quietly. Both Zariah and Derek looked at him, surprised. "I've changed. Having Eli changed me. Almost losing him changed me more." Derek nodded. "That's it exactly. Hitting rock bottom changed me. Going through rehab changed me. Realizing what I'd thrown away." He looked directly at Zariah. "What I'd done to you." Zariah crossed her arms. "If you're looking for forgiveness." "I'm not," Derek interrupted. "I know I don't deserve that. Not yet. But I want a chance to make things right with the twins." "By suing for custody?" Cameron asked. Derek shifted uncomfortably. "That was my uncle's idea. He thought we needed leverage." "Leverage?" Zariah repeated, disgusted. "They're children, not bargaining chips." "I know that," Derek said. "And after seeing this place, seeing how well you're doing, I'm not sure custody is the right approach." Zariah exchanged a glance with Cameron. "What are you saying?" Derek leaned forward. "I'm saying maybe we can work something out. Visitation, to start. Supervised if you want. I just want to get to know them again, to be their uncle. Nothing more." The sincerity in his voice gave Zariah pause. She'd expected threats, legal maneuvers, the Derek she remembered who always had an angle. But the man sitting across from her seemed genuinely remorseful. "Why now?" she asked. "After all this time?" Derek's expression turned inward. "My sponsor in AA asked me that same question. The truth is, I saw a photo of the girls at your grandparents' place. They look so much like Zora now." His voice caught. "I realized I was missing everything. Their childhood, their lives. Just like I miss being there for you when you needed me most." Zariah felt her resolve wavering. She'd loved Derek once, had believed in him. She knew the pain of losing family, of yearning for connections that were gone. "If this is some kind of manipulation," she began. "It's not," Derek said quickly. "I know it's hard to believe, but I really have changed. I've done the work. I'm still doing it." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. "This is my 10-month sobriety chip and a letter from my sponsor. He said I could share it with you." Zariah took the paper, but didn't open it. "The girls have been through a lot, Derek. They're finally stable, happy. I understand that. I don't want to disrupt their lives. But I'm their uncle. their only blood connection to their mother. The room fell silent as Zariah considered his words. She looked at Cameron, whose expression was unreadable. "What do you think?" she asked him quietly. Cameron studied Derek for a long moment. "I think people deserve second chances," he finally said. "But I also think the twins' well-being comes first." He turned to Derek. "If Zariah agrees to supervise visits, you need to understand something. Those girls are part of our family now. If you hurt them, if you disappoint them, if you make promises you don't keep, there won't be a third chance." The authority in his voice was absolute. Derek nodded slowly. "Fair enough." Zariah took a deep breath. "I need time to think about this, and I need to prepare the girls. They barely remember you." "I understand," Derek said. "Take all the time you need." He stood, looking relieved. "Thank you for hearing me out, both of you." As he turned to leave, Cameron stopped him. "One more thing, Mr. Williams. The legal threats end now. No more talk of custody battles or leveraging your connection to the girls. Either we do this in good faith or not at all." Derek met his gaze. "Understood." After Mrs. Abernathy showed him out, Zariah collapsed onto the sofa, emotionally drained. "What just happened?" she asked. Cameron sat beside her. "I think you just saw the first evidence that people can change." "Do you really believe that?" "About Derek?" Cameron considered the question. "I don't know him, but I know what it's like to realize you've been living all wrong. To wake up one day and see that you've been missing what matters most." He took her hand. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to understand what you really need." Zariah squeezed his fingers. "When did you get so wise?" "Around the time a waitress in a Maryland diner showed my son more compassion in 5 minutes than his own father had in months." Cameron's smile was self-deprecating. "I was so focused on Eli's condition, on treatments and specialists, that I forgot he was a little boy who just needed love." "You love him," Zariah said. "He knows that." "He do, but I wasn't showing it the right way." Cameron's thumb traced circles on her palm. "You taught me how." Zariah leaned against his shoulder, the tension of the morning slowly ebbing away. "What should I do about Derek? What does your heart tell you?" "That everyone deserves a second chance," Zariah admitted. "That the girls should know their mother's brother. That family matters, even when it's complicated." Cameron pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Then you have your answer." The rest of the day passed in a blur of routine. Eli's therapy, picking up the twins from school, dinner preparations. Zariah found herself watching the girls more closely, seeing the echoes of her sister in their features, their mannerisms. They deserved to know their history, their blood family. But she would be cautious, protect them at all costs. That night, after the children were in bed, Cameron found Zariah in the library, curled up with a book she wasn't really reading. "How are you holding up?" he asked, settling beside her on the window seat. "Better than I expected," she admitted. "Seeing Derek wasn't as hard as I thought it would be." "Because you're stronger now." Zariah nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe because I have more to lose." Cameron's hand found hers. "You're not going to lose anything, Zariah. Not the twins. Not your place here. Not us." The word us hung between them, laden with meaning. "What exactly is us, Cameron?" Zariah asked, finally voicing the question that had been on her mind since their kiss. "What are we doing?" "I thought it was obvious," Cameron said, his eyes steady on hers. "I'm falling in love with you. I think you might be falling in love with me too." Zariah's heart raced. "It's too soon. We've only known each other a few months. And in that time, you've changed my life completely. You've brought joy back into my home, connection back into my heart." Cameron's voice was rough with emotion. "You've made Eli smile again. You've made me believe in a future I'd given up on." "What about my job? Taking care of Eli? The boundaries we talked about?" "I don't want an employee, Zariah. I want a partner. Someone to share this life with. All of it. The good days and the bad ones. Eli's progress and his setbacks. The twins' triumphs and challenges." Zariah looked away, overwhelmed. "What if it doesn't work? What if we try and it falls apart? What happens to the children then?" "We don't let it fall apart," Cameron said simply. "We work at it every day. We remember what matters most." "Is that enough?" "It has to be," Cameron said, "because the alternative is walking away from the best thing that's happened to any of us. And I don't think either of us wants that." Zariah met his gaze again, seeing the certainty there, the steadiness she'd come to rely on. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," Cameron said. "Terrified, actually, but I've spent 3 years living in fear. Fear of losing Eli, fear of feeling too much, fear of letting anyone close. I don't want to live that way anymore." He took both her hands in his. "I want to live fully, Zariah. With you. With our children." "Our children," Zariah repeated, testing the words. "Yes. Eli, Tiffany, Tamara. Our family." The fullness in Zariah's heart threatened to overflow. "It won't be easy. The best things never are." Cameron leaned forward, his intent clear. This time, Zariah met him halfway, their lips coming together in a kiss that felt like coming home. When they broke apart, Cameron rested his forehead against hers. "So, what do you say, Zariah Lane? Are you willing to try?" Before she could answer, the library door creaked open. They turned to see Eli standing there in his pajamas, his stuffed elephant clutched to his chest. "Eli, what's wrong, buddy?" Cameron asked, concern replacing everything else. Eli padded across the room and climbed onto the window seat between them. He looked from his father to Zariah, then pulled out the small tablet he carried everywhere. His fingers moved slowly, deliberately, as he typed his message. When he turned the screen toward them, the words made Zariah's breath catch. "Will you be my mother now?" Tears filled Zariah's eyes as she looked at the little boy who had changed her life as much as she had changed his. His blue eyes held hers, patient, hopeful. "Eli," she began, her voice thick with emotion. You don't have to answer right away," Cameron said quickly. "It's a big question." But Zariah shook her head. "No, it's not." She took Eli's small hand in hers. "It's the easiest question in the world." She looked from Eli to Cameron, seeing the same hope, the same love reflected in both their faces. "Yes," she said softly. "I would be honored to be your mother, Eli, if that's what you want." The boy's face lit up with a smile, so bright it seemed to illuminate the entire room. He threw his arms around Zariah's neck, hugging her tightly. Over Eli's head, Zariah met Cameron's gaze. His eyes shone with unshed tears. "I think that settles it," he said, his voice unsteady. "Almost," Zariah said. She gently set Eli back so she could look at him. "Eli, if I'm going to be your mother, there's something important you should know." The boy waited, watching her face intently. "Being a mother means I'll love you forever, no matter what, on good days and bad days, when you're happy and when you're sad, when you're strong and when you're tired, always and forever." Zariah touched his cheek gently. "Can you handle that much love?" Eli nodded solemnly, then surprised them both by opening his mouth and forming a word. "Yes." The sound was soft, a little rough, but unmistakable. Cameron gasped. "Eli, you spoke." The boy smiled shyly, clearly pleased with himself. He typed on his tablet again. "I practiced with Dr. Chun. For today." "You practiced saying yes?" Zariah asked, amazed. "You knew you were going to ask me tonight?" Eli nodded, then typed. "Dad helped." Zariah turned to Cameron, who looked sheepish. "You planned this?" "Not exactly," Cameron admitted. "Eli has been asking about you being his mother for weeks. I told him it was a very important question, and he should be sure before he asked it. And tonight he decided he was sure," Zariah said, understanding dawning. "We both did," Cameron said softly. Eli typed again. "Family now." Zariah pulled him close, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "Yes, Eli. Family now." As if on cue, the library door opened again, and two small figures in matching pajamas appeared. "What's everyone doing in here?" Tiffany asked, rubbing her eyes. "We heard talking," Tamara added. Cameron laughed. "Apparently we're having a family meeting in the middle of the night." The twins padded over to the window seat, which was getting crowded. Without hesitation, Tiffany climbed onto Zariah's lap while Tamara settled against Cameron's side. "Is something wrong?" Tiffany asked, looking from one adult to the other. "No, sweetheart," Zariah said, smoothing her niece's hair. "Something is very, very right. We were just talking about family," Cameron explained. "About how sometimes families are made in different ways. Like us." Tamara asked. "Because our mom died and Auntie Z takes care of us?" "Exactly like that," Cameron said. And like Eli, whose mother left but who now has Zariah to love him. The twins considered this. So we're all family now? Tiffany asked. Like, for real. If that's what you want, Zariah said carefully. How would you feel about that? The twins exchanged one of their silent communications. Does that mean we can call you Mom? Tamara asked Zariah. Like Eli. Zariah's throat tightened. If you want to. But you don't have to. I'll always be your Auntie Z too. And what about Mr. C? Tiffany asked, looking at Cameron. What do we call him? Cameron's expression was carefully neutral. Whatever you're comfortable with. Another twin telepathy moment passed before Tiffany announced. We'll think about it. That's fair, Cameron agreed, his lips twitching with suppressed amusement. Eli typed on his tablet and showed it to the twins. We can share. Share what? Tamara asked. I think he means we can share Zariah and Cameron, Tiffany explained, always quick to understand. Like a real family. Eli nodded vigorously. I guess that's okay, Tamara said magnanimously. As long as I still get the pink cup at breakfast. And I get to pick the movie on Fridays, Tiffany added. And I want a puppy, Tamara threw in hopefully. One thing at a time. Zariah laughed, overwhelmed by the casual way the children were accepting this new reality. Cameron caught her eye over the children's heads. What do you think? Can we handle all this? Zariah looked at the impromptu family gathered on the window seat. The twins with their matching braids, Eli with his solemn eyes and brave heart, Cameron with his newfound openness and warmth. And herself, the woman who had once thought love was beyond her reach, now surrounded by it. I think we can handle anything, she said. Together. 2 months later, on a crisp December morning, Zariah stood in the master bedroom of the Connecticut house. Her house now, officially, since she and Cameron had married in a small ceremony the weekend before. She adjusted the collar of her blouse and checked her reflection one last time. Today was Derek's first official visit with the twins. After several preliminary meetings with a family therapist present, Zariah had agreed to let him take the girls for lunch. Cameron would follow at a discreet distance, a precaution they'd agreed was necessary for this first solo outing. A knock at the door drew her attention. Cameron entered, looking handsome in casual clothes. The girls are ready, he said, excited, a little nervous. That makes 2 of us, Zariah replied. The nervous part, anyway. Cameron crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind, meeting her eyes in the mirror. It's going to be fine. Derek has been consistent so far, and the therapist thinks this is a positive step. Zariah nodded, leaning back against his chest. I know. It's just hard to let go, even a little. That's what makes you such a good mother, Cameron said, pressing a kiss to her temple. To all 3 of them. Zariah smiled at the word mother. It still felt new, this expanded identity. Wife, mother, no longer just Auntie Z. But it felt right, too, in a way she couldn't have imagined 6 months ago when a desperate man had asked an impossible question in a Maryland diner. Where's Eli? She asked. In the sunroom with his new tutor. They're working on the speech therapy exercises Dr. Chun recommended. Zariah nodded. Eli's progress continued to amaze everyone. He was speaking more frequently now, simple words and short phrases. His physical condition remained challenging, but his spirit was stronger than ever. We should get downstairs, Zariah said. Derek will be here soon. They found the twins in the foyer, dressed in matching outfits they'd selected specially for the occasion. You both look beautiful, Zariah told them, straightening Tamara's headband. Is Uncle Derek nice? Tiffany asked for what must have been the 10th time that week. He's trying to be, Zariah answered honestly. That's why today is important, so you can get to know each other. What if we don't like him? Tamara asked. Then we'll talk about it, Cameron said, crouching down to their level. Remember, you don't have to pretend with us. Ever. Your feelings matter. The twins nodded solemnly. Over the past months, they'd taken to Cameron completely, though they still called him Mr. C most of the time. Occasionally, when they were tired or particularly happy, Dad slipped out. Each time, Cameron's face would light up in a way that made Zariah's heart swell. The doorbell rang, and Mrs. Abernathy appeared to answer it. Derek stood on the doorstep, a wrapped gift in each hand, looking almost as nervous as Zariah felt. Hello, everyone, he said, stepping inside. His eyes went immediately to the twins. Wow, you've both grown so much. The girls pressed closer to Zariah, suddenly shy. Girls, this is your Uncle Derek, Zariah said gently. Your mom's brother. Hi, Tiffany said quietly. Tamara just waved. Derek crouched down, putting himself at their level just as Cameron had done. I brought you something, he said, holding out the gifts. Your Aunt Zariah told me you like art. The twins looked to Zariah, who nodded encouragingly. They took the packages and carefully unwrapped them to reveal professional art sets, complete with paints, markers, and sketchbooks. Thank you, they said in unison, genuine smiles appearing. You're welcome, Derek said, standing up. He looked at Zariah and Cameron. I made reservations at that pizza place we discussed. We should be back by 3. Perfect, Zariah said. She knelt and gave each twin a hug. Have fun. Be good. Call if you need anything. We will, Tiffany promised. And remember, Tamara began. No pepperoni, Zariah finished laughing. I know. As Derek led the girls to his car, Cameron slipped his arm around Zariah's waist. Ready for our part of the operation? As ready as I'll ever be, Zariah said. Where's your car? Around back. I've got Eli's things packed already. They watched Derek's car pull away, the twins waving from the back seat. Then they moved into action. While Cameron got Eli, Zariah retrieved the picnic basket Mrs. Abernathy had prepared. Within 15 minutes, they were in Cameron's car, following at a safe distance. I feel like a spy, Zariah admitted as they parked across the street from the pizza restaurant, where they could see Derek and the twins being seated at a window table. A very protective spy, Cameron said, reaching for her hand. It's okay to be cautious, Zariah. It doesn't mean you don't trust the process. In the back seat, Eli tapped on his tablet. Cameron checked the rearview mirror to read the message. Eli wants to know if we can have our picnic now, he reported. Zariah turned to smile at her stepson. Absolutely. There's a nice park just down the block. We could still keep an eye on the restaurant from there. They settled on a bench with a clear view of the pizza place, spreading out the picnic Mrs. Abernathy had packed. Eli sat between them, happily munching on a sandwich cut into the dinosaur shapes he loved. Look, Cameron said quietly, nodding toward the restaurant. Through the window, they could see the twins laughing at something Derek had said. He was making animated gestures, clearly telling a story. They look like they're having fun, Zariah said, surprised by the lack of jealousy she felt. Instead, there was a quiet contentment. The twins deserved to know their uncle, to have that connection to their mother. You did the right thing, Cameron told her, seeming to read her thoughts. Giving them this chance. We did the right thing, Zariah corrected. I couldn't have done it without you. Eli tugged at her sleeve and pointed to his tablet. Family helps family. That's right, sweetheart, Zariah said, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. Family helps family. Cameron reached across Eli to take Zariah's hand. Speaking of family, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. What's that? How would you feel about expanding ours? Someday, when you're ready. Zariah's heart skipped a beat. You mean, a baby, Cameron said, his eyes serious but warm. A brother or sister for Eli and the twins. I thought, after the miscarriage, I wasn't sure if I could. The doctor said there's no reason you can't have a healthy pregnancy, Cameron reminded her gently. We take every precaution, of course. Zariah looked at Eli, who was watching their conversation with interest. What do you think, Eli? Would you like a little brother or sister someday? Eli's face lit up. He typed rapidly. Yes, please. Soon. Zariah laughed. Soon, huh? The boy nodded emphatically. Well, I can't make any promises about soon, Zariah said, her heart full to bursting. But someday, yes. I like that very much. Cameron's smile was radiant. So would I, as they sat there in the winter sunshine, watching over the twins from afar, Eli happily between them, the promise of future possibilities shimmering in the air. Zariah marveled at how life could change so completely, so wonderfully in the span of a few months. From a chance encounter in a roadside diner to this moment of perfect belonging. From a desperate question, would you be his mother? To the answer that had changed everything. Yes, 1,000 times yes. When the twins returned from lunch, full of stories about Uncle Derek and his promise to take them to the museum next month, Zariah welcomed them with open arms, genuine in her happiness for them. Later that evening, as the entire family gathered in the media room for their Friday movie night, Tiffany's choice as promised, Zariah looked around at the faces illuminated by the screen's glow, Cameron, his arm around her shoulders, Eli, nestled against her side. The twins sprawled on the floor with their art supplies, half watching the movie, half drawing. Family. Her family. Cameron caught her watching them and leaned close to whisper in her ear. Happy? Zariah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Me too, Cameron said, squeezing her hand. More than I ever thought possible. On screen, the movie's princess was singing about finding her place in the world. The twins sang along, their voices sweet and clear. Eli hummed, not quite ready for full singing, but participating in his own way. And Zariah, surrounded by the love she'd once thought beyond her reach, finally knew without a doubt what it meant to be home. The end.